Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, we found that the spending bill is dead. It was the hotly debated thing that was happening during the James Show yesterday. Then after the James Show, there was a great back and forth. And after a flurry of activity this morning, right now it's dead, but we still have it's scary, y'all. It's so scary. The looming government shutdown. Oh, my goodness. Not a government shutdown. I just really despise, with the heat of a thousand suns, the language that we use to describe these things. Because first off, it's not a government shutdown. It's a partial government shutdown where less than half of the employees will be temporarily furloughed and always receive their back pay. So what it really is a taxpayer-funded free vacation for about a third of government workers. But it's sold to you as chaos. That's what it's being sold to you as. It's sold to you as this is protecting millionaires and billionaires. This is oligarchy. This is how it happens. All right, before we get into the details, the zoomed out look. How on earth is Donald Trump stopping legislation when he's not even president? Where's the president on this? Isn't that weird? And I'm not saying they're not telling you the truth here. I'm just saying it's adorable how impotent this guy already is, and he's still in office, and how much. I mean, does Trump really have that power? I almost think like they're blaming Trump when what happens is the people that were going to vote for it realize how politically unpopular it would be, and even though they just won their election, these people in the House have to win an election in 2 more years. There's primaries that are going to happen a little over a year from now. And while we have some short memories, I don't know if they want to test those waters. Maybe the bill really is just a god-awful bill, which you can probably kind of guess that's where I stand on it. But to call it a continuing resolution is disingenuous. It's not a continuing resolution. They're not keeping the current spending that they have and just doing it for another 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. They're adding a whole bunch of stuff to it. They're changing some other laws and benefits package and a pay raise for Congress and all these other little port projects got stuck in there. So no, what it is a last good attempt to get as much out of the piggy trough as you can before the new guy comes into power. And for a lot of these people, they're about to walk out the door. They're lame ducks anyway. What do they care? This is when you get the worst legislation possible, is in this little lame duck period between an election and an inauguration day. And even when it's not an election year, this is still, if they're going to pass, the worst bills that get passed every year are usually around this time. And you may not remember specifically the days, but do you remember the pattern that when they passed Obamacare, they've got it like out of committee on like Thanksgiving weekend, and then they got it through the House on like Christmas Eve, or like literally Christmas. I think it was Christmas Eve. Then they got it through the Senate on like New Year's, and then they were squeezing it through. And the Friday before the Super Bowl, they got it out of conference committee and voted on it. It was a trip. It was like a distraction every time the bill moved forward. But here's how it's being pitched to you. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Twitter /X. She says Republicans are trying to shut down. Well, that's not scary enough. How about I do this? Let me do some. Republicans are trying to shut down the government because they want to set up massive tax cuts for the rich next year while cutting Social Security and Medicare. They know Americans don't support that, so they're holding the entire government hostage, really hostage, to try and force it. Okay. Almost everything she said there is wrong. Governments are not trying to shut down the government because they want to set up massive tax cuts for the rich next year. I guess what she's talking about is some of the provisions in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 are going to expire at the end of next year. But this bill has nothing to do with that. This bill does or doesn't have a fix, or no one's even calling for a fix or an extension of the tax cuts. So she's just wholly making that up out of cloth. Not one Republican out there is like, well, I'm not voting on it because I don't want taxes to remain at constant levels in 2026. Not one person. So that's just fantasy. And then she says, while cutting Social Security and Medicare. There's nothing in here that cuts Social Security and Medicare. There's not a proposal to cut Social Security and Medicare. Really, I wish there was. I wish that wasn't a lie. because, she is right here where she says they know Americans don't support that, which is why you're pretending like that's what Republicans are doing. But no one has a Medicare beef in this bill. No one has a Social Security cut in this bill. No one has massive tax cuts for the rich in this bill. What are you talking about? So here's Bernie Sanders' take on it. Democrats and Republicans spent months negotiating a bipartisan agreement to fund our government. The richest man on earth, President Elon Musk, doesn't like it. Will Republicans kiss the ring? Billionaires must not be allowed to run our government. Why not? You didn't have a problem when like Michael Bloomberg was running New York and he's the government. What about Bill de Blasio, mayor of New York, when he's running the what about when Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates were having all that influence during COVID on wearing masks and doing the shutdown, getting the vaccines out? There was no complaint about billionaires being allowed to run your government or having an influence on national policy then. Oh, you just mean when they agree with you, it's okay. When they don't, then it's used as a pejorative to try and get people to not support those policies, but not based on your actually policy position, based on the fact that you're trying to demonize a guy for having more than $1 billion in assets. Got it. Now here's Elon's take on it. A couple of them. Number one, he said, how can this be called a continuing resolution if it includes a 40% pay raise for Congress? Okay, yeah, like that. Mild applause. But then Elon came back today and said something that made me think. The spending bill's awful. In fact, he did a lot of anti-spending bill tweets, but one of them said, we just shouldn't pass anything until January 20th, until this new regime comes in. So yeah, you know what? I'd be okay with that. Do one of these partial shutdowns where 32% of federal workers get a taxpayer-funded vacation for the next 30 days, and whatever services have to slip through the cracks. Oh no, the permitting process is going to get some paperwork stacked up. Whatever. Maybe we should just not do anything until January 20th. We'd be fine. And I would love for Christmas to have a government shutdown. What say you? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Did you see when Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, came and visited? There was a joke Trump made about Canada being the 51st state. And we all kind of got a good laugh about that. He'd be a governor. And all right, I don't want to make Canada the 51st state. I wanted to make it like the 51st through 62nd state. How many provinces do they have? Like 13 or something? And this is one of the things that overlaps between the Republicans and Democrats that I find very disappointing is they have 10 provinces. Thank you, fact checker Garrett over there on the other side of the glass. Appreciate it. So this would be the 51st through 60th state. But at some point, both parties stopped expanding, stopped saying, okay, well, what are we going to take over next? All right, we got the whole Louisiana Purchase. What do you want to get next? Let's get Texas next. Okay, what do you want to get after that? Well, we could do the Oregon Compromise with the Brits and Canada, and we get that locked up. And okay, well, let's have a war with Mexico, and we can have the whole damn Southwest. Okay, now that we have that, let's actually buy a little chunk of that bottom part of New Mexico and Arizona. We'll call it the Gadsden Purchase. That'd be cool. What do you want to do next? Let's go buy this chunk of land from Russia up there. What's it called? Alaska. Okay, cool. We'll get it. Well, how about we make that old chain of islands out there? We'll make that into a state. And when my parents were born, there was only 48 stars on the flag. Now there's 50. And this is the longest the United States of America has ever gone without adding a state. Why? We're not supposed to be stagnant. There's a saying in business, if you ain't growing, you're dying. Well, we stopped growing. Are we dying? I mean, it feels like we're dying off. It used to be the norm for the first 200 something years of America. We were always adding territory. We were always looking at our borders, but in staring out and saying, how can we fix that? Not turning around and looking inside our own belly button and say, how can I fix that? Why not? Look at Canada as it is, just culturally speaking, just their norms. They're pretty much diet America. Except for Montreal and Quebec City over there where they speak French. Except for those dudes, can you even tell half the time when someone's from Canada? Can you tell if a dude is from Vancouver or Toronto? Wait, aren't you from Canada? Kimberly, aren't you from Canada? I think she's not listening. Thanks for listening to The James Show. Now she's typing away. I think she's from Canada. There was a news anchor I worked with in New Orleans. She was from Canada. You don't even think about it. Let's think of all the people. Jim Carrey, Justin Bieber, all these very important people. But Canada's always been Diet America. And it seems to be the further west you go, the more Americanized it is. Not only do they speak English, they speak it with our accent. I mean, you can kind of tell a Canadian accent about, okay, don't you know, things like that. But they don't sound like the Brits. They don't sound like the Australians. They don't sound like the New Zealanders. They sound like us. They are us. And so, we have the nice overlap with hockey, and they're the only country that plays our version of football. At least it's a derivative of it. We're both really big into basketball. We watch the same TV shows, same movies, same music, same culture, basically. So why is that a joke? Why not just start, hey, British Columbia, let's put that in the spending bill. We got an omnibus where we're funding a new stadium for the Commanders/Redskins/ Caucasians / politically correct. How about we just say, hey, British Columbia, y'all have a referendum. If more than 50% of y'all say you want to join the United States, you can be the 51st state. We also extend that offer to Saskatchewan, Alberta. What's the other ones? Like Winnebago and Molson Ice or something. What are the Canadian provinces? I'm kidding. I know them. We won't go all the way to maybe not Quebec and maybe not Ottawa. You're in just because I'd kind of like to have Toronto. But Manitoba, you're in. You're basically just America with a little bit more snow. Why is that a joke? Why aren't we adding states? Why doesn't that bother anybody else that we're not adding states? That doesn't bother anyone else that we hadn't added one? When was the last one? It was like Alaska or Hawaii in 58, 59, 59. Thank you, Garrett. Yeah, so 1959. It's been how long? 65 years since we added a state. We need to get on that. That's not what Americans do. Americans don't go 65 years without adding a state. And what have we been doing in the meantime? Giving ourselves more goodies from the public treasury, voting ourselves more checks from government largesse, putting the power of all these important life decisions in the hands of politicians in Austin and D.C. This is what we've done. This is what we've traded in. Liberty for security, expansion for collapse, freedom for safety. That's not very American. We need to stop that. And here we are. And that's one of the defining characteristics of this bill. Of every time they do this omnibus crap at the end of the year, everyone's coming in to just see how much they can get from the public trough. Now, there's some other devious parts about this spending bill that make it even worse than normal. Number one is Mike Johnson. When he became Speaker of the House for the Republicans, there was some skepticism that he was going to be a moderate. He was going to be a squish. And when it came down to it, he's going to be another one of these go along to get along rhinos that was going to do omnibuses and continuing resolutions. And while he was on that track, it was just in September of this year that he's like, we're not going to do that thing every year where we have a CR at Christmas time or an omnibus on December 20th. Nuh-uh, no, sir, not in my speakership.
We have broken the Christmas omni, and I have no intention of going back to that terrible tradition. So there won't be a Christmas omnibus. As somebody asked me in the hallway a little while ago, will there be many buses? We don't want any buses. We're not going to do any buses, okay?
So here we are with buses. So Mike Johnson, either you're terrible at your job or you're intentionally lying. Either way, let me give you the side of Team, because that's the side of Team Red that I have problems with. The side of Team Red that I'm on, Thomas Massie is one of them. Rand Paul, Mike Lee, those guys. Thomas Massie, here he is predicting that there would be an omnibus right after Mike Johnson said that. This is from October 2nd of this year.
By the way, I made another prediction that it would end right before Christmas, that it wouldn't go till next spring, because, and we've talked about this on your show, Brian, for as long as I've been coming on your show, which is at least 12 years.
See it coming a mile away. Go ahead.
Every year, they do the same play.
Christmas
Eve, shutdown, panic. Because here's what they're doing. They're taking our families hostage, the families of congressmen in Washington, D.C. on December 20th, which is when this CR expires, and they're going to either put another worse CR that's probably going to have Ukraine and everything else attached to it, or they're going to do the full-on omnibus, depending on how the election comes out.
Okay, so, wow. That is a fantastic prediction. What Mike Johnson said, the opposite came to be true. What Thomas Massie said actually came to be true to the date. Well, does he really say that every year? Is he just trying to take credit for getting it right? No. Here's Thomas Massie. Last year, this was from September 22nd, 2023.
CR. Oh, you want to go home for Christmas? Well, vote for this, and we'll let you go see your families and your new grandbaby, and you can watch your 2-year-old open presents But if you don't, you're going to stay here with your leadership and their leadership and wait for a bunch of geriatric senators to send over the answer.
I just love the way he calls them geriatric senators. Let's go all the way back 5 years. Here's Thomas Massie, November 20th, 2019, making the same prediction because, yes, this really does happen every year.
And I've seen this play call like 4 times in the 7 years I've been in Congress. They've punted the ball until December 20th. And what they'll do is they'll come in.
Okay, we already know what you're going to do. The funny part is you turn over to the news and they're all surprised about it. They're all surprised. Oh, I can't believe that there's this chaos that's going on in December. Oh my goodness, we're facing a government shutdown. I don't know if they genuinely are surprised, like they just don't remember things for 11 months at a time, or they're putting an act on. But the reaction to this shutdown, like they're all surprised. This is going to be all chaos. And no, this happens all the time. There's never chaos. There's never a collapsed economy. There's never a collapsed Wall Street. And this isn't Elon's fault. And this isn't going to destroy the livelihoods and families of federal workers. What you're hearing out there is just hyperbole. And I don't know if they're too dumb to remember the last time this happened every single year, or they're just putting on an act. But both of them should disqualify you from office. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Dallas is going to try and make some improvements to its public transportation system. You'll hear from one of the contractors trying to do it. Coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Are you cheering for a government shutdown? A lot of people act like it's the most terrible thing in the world. I think it's the
most wonderful time.
It's shutdown season, baby. Hey, give them some extra time off to be with their family. Give them a little extra time off. Those poor federal bureaucrats, they've been working so hard. They've been doing such a good job, actually. They deserve some time off. How about give them a whole damn month off? How about y'all come back on January 20th? We'll pass the for real bill. I love how this thing's being covered, though. The people that don't see this every year, unless you're new to talk radio, and I have to keep reminding myself that most of the people listening are all-day listeners, if not everyday listeners. But there's a whole lot of people that just in the last 12 months or so have become politically or news aware and started listening, or maybe they just moved here, found the station or whatever. But if you're a journalist who's been doing this for years and this catches you off guard, and I can't believe we're going through this at this time of year, you're either dumb or you're just not paying attention, maybe a pretty solid mix of both. But it's also not just that every spending bill that comes down in December I oppose, or, fiscally conservative people oppose. There's actually things in this bill that make it worse than just continuing what was in the previous bill. There's like additions to this one. So Vivek Ramaswamy is spelling out some of the other things besides just continuing the resolution in this bill that you're not going to like.
About to pass a bill that blows away your taxpayer money, but they made it over 1,500 pages long so you wouldn't read it. I did you a favor. I read it for you. It's supposed to be about keeping government operations open and providing disaster relief aid to hurricane victims, which I'm sympathetic to. But if you read the bill carefully, it contains pay raises for members of Congress, and I'm not making this up, an expansion of their federal health benefits. It contains all kinds of special interests and pork funding, including opening up a new stadium in Washington, D.C. It renews the Global Engagement Center, which is a key node of the censorship industrial complex. And the worst part is, they didn't want you to know about any of it, and that's why they made this a last-minute jam job. The reason I'm co-heading DOGE is I think we need outsiders to bring actual accountability to Washington, D.C. So feel free to call your congressman and let him know how you feel about it.
Okay, so now he spelled out nothing but straight-up policy reasons why he opposes it. He doesn't like the deficit aspect of it. He doesn't like the expansion of health care benefits for members of Congress. He doesn't like, what were the other things he was putting in there? The renewal of some government agency for censorship. He doesn't like the pay raise. And so he was coming down straight up on policy reasons why it should be opposed. When it's reported on by the media, do they say the Republicans are opposing this because they don't like a pay raise for Congress? They don't like increased funding for all these other pet projects. They don't like all the pork. They don't like the deficit spending. They don't like how it expands benefits for congressmen. No. Republicans oppose it because Elon told them to. Really?
Out front tonight, we begin with the breaking news. Elon Musk's government shutdown, a sentence that even a year ago would have seemed completely bizarre. But not now.
See, the reason why that's so... I'm sorry, Aaron Burnett, to interrupt. The reason why that's so frustrating is because now we're not having the real conversation. Because they're coming out and saying, well, I don't like these aspects of the bill. No, they're just not doing it because Elon told them to. So now we can't have a real discussion. You're supposed to be saying, Aaron Burnett, why? Why does Congress need a raise? Why does Congress need an expansion of health benefits? Why do we need to keep that speech censorship institution open? Why do we need all these pork projects? No, she doesn't have to actually answer any of the policy or anything intelligent. She can just say, well, Elon told them not to. And so they're just puppets of Elon. And that's why they oppose it. They just want tax breaks for the rich or whatever the standard line is.
Not after images like that, because the man who has been by Trump's side nearly every day since the election and since that moment at a rally is pushing the country to the brink of a shutdown.
Yay.
He is going after the House Speaker's funding deal just days before the deadline.
Good.
Speaker Mike Johnson has spent weeks negotiating a deal with Democrats, doing what lawmakers are doing, horse trading, negotiating. And, of course, he needs Democrat support to pass anything in the closely divided House that he
Hang
faced.
on, that's just a flat-out lie. He doesn't need one Democrat to vote on it. What he's doing is getting some Republican squishes, some rhinos, some Republicans that have been bought off by lobbyists, the Dan Crenshaws and Mike Johnsons and McCarthy's of the world. And they're going to go side with the Democrats against the overwhelming majority of Republicans. So when they say this is bipartisan, it's not that a majority of both parties support it either. That's a lie, too. Damn, lady, just about everything about your reporting's a lie. But go ahead, continue.
And it was Musk who stood up and said, no way, firing the first shot. Just hours after Johnson released his bill, Musk posted this on his social media platform. This bill should not pass.
Now, look, they are just conflating these things with no evidence whatsoever. It's not like they sent a producer out to the halls of Congress and they're like, why are you turning down this bill? And they're like, well, I was going to vote for it, but Elon told me to. There's not one person out there that's like, I really like everything that's in here. I like the congressional pay raise. I love all the pork projects. I love the huge deficit spending and the inflation that's going to happen from this bill. But Elon told me to vote against it. So, I'm his puppet. Not one person has said it. They're just making this up. They're just out of fantasy instead of like actually reporting to you. Are they telling you what's in the bill? Are they telling you what Vivek is saying is either wrong or somehow good for the country? No, they're just kind of scapegoating old Elon there. Jamal Bowman, a guy who should know better, another Democrat congressman. Why does he think this whole shutdown?
Over 330 million people in the U.S. About 2.1 million people work for the federal government. About 900,000 will be directly impacted if the government were to shut down.
So less than half.
Which is what Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Vivek Ramaswamy are calling for right now from the Republican Party. This is what we voted for, y'all.
Yeah.
So if the government shuts down, we have millions, if not tens of millions of people impacted because those who work for the federal government can't pay their bills, will go into debt, and all chaos will break loose.
Look, I already support it. You don't have to sell it to me. That sounds awesome. Oh, James, you don't have any empathy or sympathy for the families of the employees that are going to lose their job. They're not losing their job. They're going to go home for a week or two. They're going to get all their back pay restored. And even if they were going to lose their jobs, I would support it even harder. James, you don't know what it's like. Oh, really? I don't know what it's like. I've never been fired. I haven't been fired from 5 different radio stations and TV stations or laid off. In fact, I don't think I've ever been let go for cause. Let's see what y'all say. 800-288-9227. Vance in Arlington, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
Yes, I was thrilled to hear somebody finally say, hey, no, we're not going to let this pork barrel thing go through. And quite honestly, when the government shuts down, everything that is essential is taken care of. And oh, my gosh, I hope they keep it shut down for a while. Keep these guys from spending money because that's all they do. And it's my money coming out of my pocket.
Well, it never ends up saving us money on the shutdown. They always get all their back pay back, and we actually lose some money because we have to do such gymnastics to facilitate it. But I like for the American people, I like for my neighbors to see that they can be out of work for a couple weeks, maybe even a month at that longest shutdown, and the world doesn't fall apart. You actually don't need all these people and these non-essential workers. Maybe they should never go back to work. What do you think about that, Vance?
Well, we're going to have to cut We're going to have to cut. And the only people I see that don't get money would be like national park rangers and things of that name. And they get their money later.
I know. They always get it back. You got it. All right. I appreciate it, Vance. See, Vance is on my team. All we want for Christmas, y'all, is the government shutdown. 800-288-9227. That's not Santa. If I want one thing this year, please make it a government shutdown. I've been a good boy. All right, I've been a moderately good boy. I haven't been completely bad. I deserve a government shutdown. What do you think? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If you want to jump in on the show, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227, or you can send me an email, james@wbap.com. You can also send me, I get more than anything, Facebook messages, Facebook Messenger. So send me messages any way you can get them on the topic, and I'll try and turn around and get you an answer on the show if as long as you're on topic. Like Ron says, he says, government shutdown sounds bad over Christmas. The truth is it will be shut down over Christmas, and government employees are all off anyway. That's really obvious, but I should have said it anyway. So that's a great point. Thank you. Right. So for all the histrionics that this is a terrible time to have a government shutdown. It's actually the easiest time, the most efficient time to have a government shutdown. How many of y'all are missing work right now anyway? That's a good point. This is the ideal time. If ever we were going to have a shutdown, it's around Christmas time. And I played you, if you missed it earlier, I played Vivek Ramaswamy going through some bullet points on why the bill stinks, some things that are in it, the expansion of health benefits for members of Congress, the pay raise for Congress, spending projects. He pointed out specific pork projects that are in there, not to mention just the natural deficit spending and inflationary pressures that come with where 40% of all your spending dollars are borrowed or printed out of thin air. Yeah, these were all legit complaints based on policy. But what did the media hear and what did the political opposition hear? Oh, they're just doing it because Elon told them to? Because Trump told them to? Why is it we can never have a real conversation about the real issues when it comes to these people? Why can't they turn around and say, no, look, here's why Congress needs a raise? I even did a job on that yesterday. I was giving you the case on why Congress should get a raise. Not that they deserve it, not that they've done such a good job that I can't wait to give them more money. I'm just saying we might get a better result. We might get a better crop of human beings. We might get fewer grifters in there if they raise the salary. But that's not what Erin Burnett said when she went on CNN last night. That's not what Jamal Bowman said when he gave his little concern on TikTok. We didn't even finish that. We should finish that because, I don't know, do they just not want to let their constituents know what really is bothering people about the bill? Because what's really bothering me about these people that change their mind isn't the fact that they changed their mind because Trump told them to. It's because they had to be shamed into following the principles that their voters put them in office for. Anyway, let's finish the Jamal Bowman explanation on why we need to pass this omnibus.
So there are over 330 million people in the U.S. About 2.1 million people work for the federal government. About 900,000 will be directly impacted if the government were to shut down, which is what...
See, don't you despise the rules of language that you have to follow? If less than half of the workers aren't going to work, is it a shutdown? Is that what happens at McDonald's? Is McDonald's shut down if less than half the staff doesn't show up tomorrow? Maybe they even close the indoor dining and you can still do the drive-through. But some services are still being offered. It's not a shutdown. It's barely a partial shutdown. When less than half of the government is being shut down, how can the whole thing fall under the umbrella of shut down? What we're really going to have is some narrow trimming at the edges while the mathematical wizards work out how they're going to spend more of your money that we don't have. And then when they come back, they're going to get all that back pay, probably in a big fat lump sum. They're going to be fine. But he's trying to get you to appeal to the plight of these poor people. Jamal Bowman, didn't you support the vaccine mandates? Were you concerned about the thousands of pilots and their families who were going to lose their job from your mandates? What about the soldiers that lost their job from your mandates? What about all the teachers and academics and professors that lost their job from your mandates? What about the attempt by the Biden administration to take every corporation with 100 or more people and force a mandate on them? How many millions of people would have lost their job? Was there any concern about that? No, there wasn't. He continues.
Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Vivek Ramaswamy are calling for right now from the Republican Party. This is what we voted for, y'all. So if the government shuts down, we have millions, if not tens of millions of people impacted.
Good.
Because those who work for the federal government can't pay their bills.
Good.
Will go into debt.
Well, hang on.
And all chaos will break loose.
Hang on. Same principle goes in the last interruption there. What do you mean they won't be able to pay their bills? Are they forever going to be unemployable? You know, some of these people have second jobs. Some of these people have spouses with jobs. Some of these people probably still live with their parents. Some of these people might live with their kids. Some of these people might get a job immediately. They might have a job waiting in the wings. They might just be out of work for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month at the most. Why do you assume they'll go into debt? That's the norm, that they're going to go into debt and they're going to suffer and they're just going to, without government handing them a job, these people are what, useless otherwise to the workforce? Well, you don't think very highly of your employees, do you? You know, do you have the same sort of compunction for a small business that has to let somebody go, or a corporation that has to let somebody go? It's weird, the double standards these people can magically come up with, but also the sort of condescending way that without a taxpayer-funded seat in an office waiting for them, it's going to destroy their family. No, they'll be just fine without the government jobs. They can go find employment elsewhere and feed their family and be productive just like the rest of us. They're not idiots, most of them.
But this is what Elon Musk, who's worth $400 billion, wants to do.
Is that a problem?
This is what Donald Trump wants to do, and Vivek Ramaswamy wants to do, and J.D. Vance wants to do. This is what we voted for.
Yes.
So they don't want to fix government. They want to create chaos and then siphon money from the government for their own pockets.
So if there's a government shutdown, there would be less of a siphoning of taxpayer dollars into the pockets of the cronies? Aren't they trying to stop the siphon? In fact, when your entire effort is to make government smaller, they're doing the opposite. You want to grow government, so you're the one that wants to siphon more money. They want less money to be siphoned through the halls of D.C. So not only is that not true, that's sort of the opposite of the truth. And why aren't you defending the bill itself? Why are you attacking the people who are criticizing it instead of actually countering their criticism? No, here's why the bill's good. Not, there's going to be people suffering. Evil rich people are saying this and they're bad. You didn't care when the billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates were pushing the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates and the government shutdowns and the private sector shutdowns and the school shutdowns. No, billionaires weren't evil when they were agreeing with you. Billionaires are only evil if they disagree with you. Not buying it. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, this handsome fellow, Troy Aikman's going to give you an update, and more James shows coming up after the news. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.
Aikman on the Cowboys, powered by CW Service Pros and Veterans Energy.
We're in the end of what's been a pretty crappy Cowboys season. When you look at this Cowboys organization, what do you see to be optimistic about?
Well, I think, coming into this year, obviously the last 3 years, this team's, it's been really good. And I know there's a frustration amongst the fans that the team hasn't done more in the postseason. I'm certain there's a frustration amongst the players and the organization in that regard as well. It's hard to reconcile with the success they've had, not just the last 3 years, but you go back for a number of years and you start looking at regular season wins. The Cowboys are in top 10, certainly, maybe top 5 for the most part, and yet they haven't had that run in the postseason in 30 years, and that's the part that's really hard to imagine. I tend to think that this team's a much better team than what the record would suggest, but there are some holes and there are some questions that have to be answered.
Aikman on the Cowboys on WBAP.